What's going on, pro wrestling fans? My name is Jose Ramos Jr. Thank you for joining me on another post-show reaction, this time for WWE Crown Jewel. WWE, the roster, the company, they make their way back to Saudi Arabia to present really an eventful show. You know, I look at the way these Saudi Arabia shows have been presented over the course of recent history. For sure, I know early on, those early years, it was seen much more as like a one-off. You know, you had these stories, these matches that weren't really falling in line of the canon that WWE had been presenting at that time. For example, we saw matches like The Undertaker versus Goldberg. We had Triple H versus The Undertaker at one point. We had the infamous tag match between the Brothers of Destruction versus D-Generation X. And in those early years, it was really just a showcase of WWE's past. But under the Triple H regime, we've really kind of presented them in a much more grander event. We look at how King of the Ring earlier this year had been presented as this huge event that would help propel the winners of each tournament to another level. And both of those winners, Nia Jax and Gunther, were on display here, I would say tonight, but it's midday here in Arizona. And just like I said, we highlighted the King of the Ring tournament and the Queen of the Ring tournament during that event. And for Crown Jewel, we highlighted the Crown Jewel championships for both the men and women. Just another layer of, again, grandiose, another layer of importance and significance to these premium live events. And that's one thing I can learn to appreciate as we dive deeper and deeper into the Triple H regime. But let's go ahead and let's start off the reaction here. The very first matchup on the card was Bloodline versus Bloodline. It was Solo Sikoa, it was Tama Tonga, and Jacob Fatu as they would defeat the OG Bloodline, the Usos, Jimmy and Jay, along with their cousin Roman Reigns. I think it was a good call to have this matchup be the opener. When you have a story that is so rich in importance as the Bloodline saga is, it's very difficult to not place that in the main event spot. So to have it open up the show and have the crowd be exposed to such high emotion, high action early on to set the stage for the night, it can't go wrong. Obviously, everyone that was incorporated in the matchup between the Tongans, Jacob Fatu, Solo, the OG Bloodline, everyone was on their A game. We knew what to expect from them. I will say, from a match standpoint, it was a fine matchup, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that it kind of left me wanting a little bit more. I think it left a little bit to be desired, and that's okay because this wasn't the end game. We all know signs are pointing towards a War Games matchup between both iterations of the Bloodline. Like I said, the new Bloodline, Solo Sikoa's Bloodline, had emerged victorious with the victory, defeating Roman and the Usos in what was more of a match that was rich in story, I should say. We saw that there was a lack of trust and communication between Jay and Roman Reigns. There were instances where Roman Reigns was ready for a tag and Jay would refuse to include his cousin into the matchup because he told him from the get-go, this is not going to be you calling the shots. We're all equals. I'm not going to tag you in the matchup just because you want to be in the match. That's not how it works. So a little miscommunication there. Obviously, they had gotten the upper hand, but because of a guy like Jacob Fatu and Tonga Loa getting involved throughout the matchup, it would disrupt the chemistry of the OG Bloodline, which is what's to be expected. This group hasn't teamed up in quite some time. I mean, the Usos in themselves last teamed up at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view premium live event last summer in 2023, where they would defeat Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. So it's been quite a long time since we've seen them work together. We know that the Bloodline, that Solo Sikoa's Bloodline, would emerge victorious, and of course the obligatory beatdown by the Bloodline that would follow the matchup, but this time with a little wrinkle in the story, a little plot twist here. We saw that on last week's Monday Night Raw, Sami Zayn was caught speaking with Solo Sikoa. Obviously, we don't know what was being said, but it would lead you to believe that maybe he was trying to side with Solo Sikoa. For long-term viewers, I think you can make the assumption that it was Sami Zayn trying to make peace. It was Sami Zayn trying to say, hey, let's squash the beef. We don't need this over here on Monday Night Raw. Whatever you guys going on Friday Night SmackDown, that's your business. or vice versa. It could also be Solo Sikoa trying to beat them to the punch and try to recruit Sammy onto their side, because if you remember, when his time during the bloodline, Sammy and Solo, they didn't have that many disagreements. In fact, there were times where Solo defended Sami Zayn. So something to keep an eye on there. But we would see that the bloodline would attempt to attack and dispose of Jey Uso, and Sami Zayn comes out from the back and seemingly is going to give a hug to Solo Sikoa. Not like Jacob Fatu. I love when Jacob Fatu says, "Solo, I love you, Solo." I think it's hilarious. But Sami Zayn, he would instead extend his arms out, welcoming Solo Sikoa in for an embrace, but would turn that into an exploder suplex. And that sets the stage. There was a moment there where we get rid of all the heels, and all that's left is Solo Sikoa in the middle of the ring with guys like Jimmy, Jay, Roman Reigns, and of course, Sami Zayn. All members of the original bloodline. All 5 of them. The only one that was missing was Paul Heyman, the wise man. So again, that leads me to believe and leads me to ask the question, when will we see Paul Heyman back in the WWE? I think more likely than not, it'll be during the build-up towards Survivor Series. I think that'll be one of the big pops that we'll get. We know Paul Heyman is traveling with Roman Reigns because we've seen the behind-the-scenes footage of him interacting with Roman, whether it's at a SmackDown, whether it's at a Bad Blood or Crown Jewel. He's still very much present in, the behind-the-scenes aspect. But when are we going to see Paul Heyman reunite with the Tribal Chief? Of course, I'm talking about Roman Reigns. Like I said, great way to start the show off. Great high-octane offense. Great storytelling here, especially when we had that moment where Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns both are trying to connect with their maneuvers onto Solo Sikoa, but being the slimy heel that he is, was able to evade that attack, and it opened up an opportunity for miscommunication between Sami and Roman, colliding into one another, and then it develops that level of distrust again. Jimmy can't trust Sami. Sami doesn't trust Jimmy. You just attacked Roman. Hey, I wasn't trying to attack Roman. He got in my way. And Jay, in between it all, saying, I want to trust my family. But you guys got to realize that when you guys weren't there, Sami Zayn was. So Jay, again, caught in the middle of it all, just like he was in the first go around. Very, very much so in a level of discomfort, but also just confusion for Jay. And I think in order for them to be able to defeat this bloodline, they all got to get on the same page. And I think that is maybe when a guy like Paul Heyman comes into play. He's the wise man. He's going to be able to refocus everyone together. He's going to be able to recollect everybody for the common goal, for the common enemy, and that is dispatching of this new version of the bloodline. But that is for the Survivor Series in Vancouver. November 30th, I believe, is the day that will take place. And let's move on here to the second match on the card. A fun, fatal four-way matchup. We had a great fatal four-way matchup between 4 of the women involved on SmackDown, but this time around it was a tag team matchup. Lash Legend, Jakara Jackson versus Piper Niven and Chelsea Green versus Io Sky and Kairi Sane representing Damage Control, and of course the reigning and defending tag team champions Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. Very similar to their matchup on SmackDown, the Fatal 4-Way that is, where it was a showcase of everybody. Everyone had their moments to shine. We have a little bit of miscommunication again, which is a running theme in the WWE as of late, between Piper Niven and Chelsea Green. But of course, the babyface team of Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair go over. They retain the championships, which I think was the right call. In the prediction video, if you had watched that, you would know that I had chosen Bianca and Jade to go over. If not them, I thought there was a chance that maybe we give it to Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson. But now, with hindsight being 2020, it would make sense for them to retain this title and not hotshot it to the NXT stars that are Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson, because they kind of already did that with the Motor City Machine Guns. So, with that being said, I think Jade and Bianca will reign as champions for a little bit longer. And when they finally do lose those championships, I think that is going to open the door for a heel turn, presumably by Jade Cargill, by attacking Bianca, leading to a WrestleMania matchup. I certainly think that would be fantastic for both individuals. Bianca Belair, one of the best on the roster. Jade Cargill has all the talents, all the makings of being a real credible star within the WWE. And I think this time here that she's been with Bianca Belair helps her develop the character, helps her develop this confidence, and essentially it's building up the story. It's laying the foundation for the story that I think will become Jade versus Bianca, certainly at WrestleMania 41. A good matchup, solid matchup. That's two to start off. I will say the Bloodline match I thought was good. This Bianca matchup, Bianca and Jade matchup, I should say, give respect to both champions, was fun. But this next matchup here, Seth Rollins defeats Big Bronson Reed in a brutal matchup. I mean, to the point where we weren't even able to have the matchup officially start because Seth Rollins makes a run at Bronson Reed while he's approaching the ring. You know, he gets to the ramp, and it has this brawl type of feel to it, which I think was the right call here. This feud is predicated on the attacks by Bronson Reed. He has attacked guys like The Miz, R-Truth, Braun Strowman, but it all started the night after SummerSlam where he laid out Seth Rollins with 6 tsunamis. That is what helped jumpstart this next phase in Bronson Reed's career. I had predicted a Bronson Reed victory. I thought Seth Rollins certainly is someone that can take a loss and recover from it, but being that Big Bronson Reed had already suffered a loss to Braun Strowman, I wasn't sure if they were going to go back-to-back losses for Bronson Reed. But I thought for the match itself, it was a great matchup between two of the better wrestlers on Monday Night Raw, showcasing the resiliency of Seth Rollins. There was a lot of times in this matchup that I got hints of Shawn Michaels here. And if you bear with me, let's turn the clock back here. Shawn Michaels' best matchups has always been with larger opponents. Look at 1996 when he had Vader at the SummerSlam event defending his title. He had great matches against The Undertaker. I don't think I have to dive into that. If you are familiar with the channel and familiar with the content that I talk about, you would know that I'm such a huge fan of what The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels were able to produce as, you know, wrestlers within the ring. So when you put up a guy like Seth Rollins against Bronson Reed, it's the perfect blend of two different styles. You have the evasive athleticism of a Seth Rollins who was having to combat against the big hulking figure that is Big Bronson Reed. Big shout out to Bronson Reed as well for the spot where he lifts up the steel steps and Seth Rollins is able to, you know, attack him, and it allows him to have Bronson Reed kind of fall headfirst onto the steel steps and then leading to a curb stomp that eventually opened up a little bit of color on Bronson Reed. Now, I'm a big advocate for when it comes to color, blood in professional wrestling, because I just think it's necessary. Obviously, you don't want to overdo it and have it become excessive to the point where it's glaringly distracting. But when you have two guys like Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins who are on this collision course, they've been on this collision course, I should say, it warrants this type of action, right? Big Bronson Reed does take the loss after 3 curb stomps, the last one being like a super curb stomp off the top rope. And it doesn't really hurt Bronson Reed. And that's one thing I take away from this matchup. I was afraid that if we gave Seth Rollins the win here and Big Bronson Reed takes the loss, it might hinder the momentum that he's built up. But as soon as he loses the matchup, Seth Rollins is already on his way back to the gorilla position. You see him selling the effects of the attack by holding onto his back. He has a slight limp. And then Bronson Reed just gets back up and is urging Seth Rollins to get back in the ring. Basically, pulling a Braun Strowman from like 2018, telling Roman Reigns, I'm not finished with you. He says, bring it over here, boy. It wasn't done. So that leads me to believe that this feud is far from over. I'm thinking we're probably going to end up getting some type of rematch with a stipulation. You know, we had the last monster standing match between Strowman and Reed. I don't think that's going to be the case here for this matchup, but I would suspect that we will get some type of stipulation to have a blow-off here. Bronson Reed, great showing. Seth Rollins, great matchup here. Would be followed by the inaugural Women's Crown Jewel Championship by having Liv Morgan defeat Nia Jax. That's the Women's World Champion, defeating SmackDown's WWE Women's Champion in a good matchup. You know, I think I saw some complaints where there were members on the, IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community. They thought that Liv Morgan and Nia Jax seemed to be like a matchup on Monday Night Raw, that it didn't really feel that much importance. There was a bunch of interference, but I think the build-up to the match itself, That's what they basically told you it was going to be. Dominic and Raquel Rodriguez are no strangers to interfering in Liv Morgan's business. That's a given. Even if they didn't, come down to the ring with her, it's assumed that they're going to get involved. Tiffany Stratton has been getting involved in the matches of Nia Jax. Not a secret, right? So when she tells everyone on Friday Night SmackDown, I am going to cash in, is that not her basically letting you in on, yeah, I'm going to be there? Now, I told you guys, if you didn't watch the post-show reaction to SmackDown, I'll tell you again right here. I told you guys, I guaranteed, I was like, there's not going to be a cash-in. There might be an attempt, but there's not going to be a cash-in because I feel like they want to subvert expectations. If I tell you one thing is going to happen, I want to bring you into the show and lure you as an audience member to watch what is taking place, but that doesn't mean I have to give you it. The Money in the Bank contract is best utilized when it's a surprise. Look at guys like Edge in 2006. Look at guys like Seth Rollins in 2015. Damian Priest this past WrestleMania. They didn't announce it ahead of time. They just went and did it. And it made for some of the best cash-ins of all time. Now, of course, like I said, Liv Morgan would get the victory because of the distraction. What I liked is Dominic Mysterio, like a callback to the King and Queen of the Ring event, where he provides a distraction that allowed Liv Morgan to defeat Becky Lynch to win that Women's World Championship. He gets the briefcase, Tiffany Stratton's briefcase, slides it in the ring to get the officials' attention. And in doing so, that opens up the door for Raquel Rodriguez to, lay out Nia Jax and open the door for Liv Morgan to get the victory here. I think it was the right call. I think from a logical standpoint here, it makes sense. They're outnumbered, right? Nia Jax's only, form of help was in Tiffany Stratton, who wasn't even 100% invested in her. Whereas Liv Morgan has the Judgment Day. Like, she has a disposal of individuals who are there to help her. I also think because Nia Jax had won the Queen of the Ring tournament, it wasn't necessary to have this as well. Great, would have been great. Yeah, it'd be great for her to be the Queen of the Ring, the WWE champion, and the Crown Jewel champion, pulling off a triple crown there. But I think Liv Morgan benefits from it more. And it just makes more logical sense if you ask me. But, good matchup between them. The next matchup, of course, scheduled would be Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens, building up as a grudge match between two former friends, as Kevin Owens believes he's justified in his attacks on Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton because of their betrayal of Kevin Owens by teaming up with the Bloodline, or Randy Orton's case, by laying his hands on Kevin Owens. But it was really out of self-defense and really just a way of protecting himself after Kevin Owens elbowed the Viper there. The matchup, of course, again, another personal feud. So not unlike the Bronson Reed versus Seth Rollins matchup, very much a bitter rivalry. So I don't see how you can just have a straight up one-on-one contest and expect it to be squeaky clean. Seth Rollins, Randy Orton and Kevin Owens would not even have the match take place. In fact, it was a no contest. The matchup never happened, and it would spin out of control by having all the WWE officials, whether it was guys like Kenny Dykstra, Shane Helms, Sean Daivari, all former names of the past, even when you have Kevin Owens laying his hands on the official, giving him a good old stunner, and then you have Randy Orton RKOing Adam Pearce. And what I really liked is that Nick Aldis slides out of the ring, because we know there's history there as well. He had, Randy Orton had RKO'd Nick Aldis in the past, had to pay a fine, and even overpaid because he had said this one's for next time. So little details like that I really enjoy. It rewards audience members who keep up to date with the product and the storylines, but just the level of chaos is what I want from a feud like this. This is a feud that is predicated on chaos. Kevin Owens had attacked Cody Rhodes off air, off screen, leading to many fans having their cell phones out and recording what had happened. No WWE production team, no video, no footage by the WWE had captured that attack. It was all fan footage. So this level of chaos and just unexpectedness when it comes to this feud is a breath of fresh air, rather. So having it end in a no contest, while watching it, I did mention that It makes sense. It makes sense that these two are in a bitter feud. They're not going to have a straight up matchup, but it does kind of suck for the live audience who had paid tickets to see this matchup, or I don't know what was their hype levels in regards to Orton versus Owens, but for it to just be a no contest, yeah, it kind of takes a little bit of the air out of the the room. But at least they gave him a moment here. Kevin Owens delivering a huge elbow drop on the outside, putting Randy Orton out. We'll see if that has any long-term ramifications when it comes to that story. I think it all leads to Kevin Owens versus Cody Rhodes. And I think it's probably going to happen at Saturday night's main event. But we still have to see a definitive matchup between Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. And a quick little detail about Kevin Owens that I really like. If you pay attention as I'm scratching my nose, he would attack Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. But the common theme here is the wardrobe, the t-shirts that Kevin Owens is wearing. When he attacks Cody Rhodes, when he's talking about the attacks on Cody Rhodes, he's donning a t-shirt that is that of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. In this matchup, he had a t-shirt that was Cowboy Bob Orton, both legendary figures in professional wrestling and legendary father figures for Cody and Randy Orton. If you want to look into it, because especially with today's, the climate of professional wrestling in WWE, everything is happening for a reason. Kevin Owens has great respect for these two individuals, I think, as wrestlers. He has respect for their families. He has respect for the business. So it's a way of him respecting and honoring Cowboy Bob and Dusty, but also I think it might be another way of him trying to show them, like, hey, I don't think your dad, for both individual, would be approving of what you're doing, on how you're treating me. Almost like a self-righteousness, a self-justification when it comes to Kevin Owens. And Kevin Owens is one of those guys who is very knowledgeable about the ongoing product. He, in his promos at least, he talks about logical stuff. I remember there was an instant earlier this year where it was him and Cody Rhodes. I believe they were facing Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. And he comes out to defend Cody Rhodes, and he basically just jumps the gun and says, hey, this is the part where we attack you. We got a tag team match scheduled. Let's just go ahead and get a referee out here, and let's just handle business. Like, he follows the script here. He knows the way professional wrestling works. So we'll see how that handles itself on Friday Night SmackDown. What happens with Randy Orton, because he did attack a GM. And what happens to Kevin Owens, because he did attack an official. So you can expect some kind of fine, some kind of suspension for both of those guys as a way to kind of put that rivalry on pause and extend it over time. Now, you want to talk about overtime. How about the Andrade versus Carmelo Hayes saga? Those guys had 7 matches. Great matches. I mean, sans Game 7 because of that controversial finish. I'm against it. Having LA Knight basically ruled a no contest and giving himself the victory. But again, if you want to look at it from a standpoint of story, it makes sense for a guy like LA Knight to do that. But they had great matches. Every match was a banger, and I was expecting no different here in the triple threat match, as LA Knight, he would defeat Andrade and Carmelo Hayes, and I thought it would have created a finish here. We saw that it looked like Carmelo Hayes was going for like a tilt-a-whirl face buster, and try to get the upper hand on Andrade, but as he lands on his feet to hit the facebuster, here comes LA Knight with the BFT that would land on Carmelo Hayes while also simultaneously landing a facebuster on El Idolo. A great matchup. Obviously it was just off of the first watch. I'd have to rewatch the matches to get a better feel for it, but that triple threat match might be on the verge of my favorite match on the card. The only one I think I would put over it maybe is the main event, but that was just a fun U.S. Championship matchup, a fun triple threat matchup that showcased 3 of the very best in the mid-card on Friday Night SmackDown. Now that LA Knight has defeated both Andrade and Carmelo Hayes, who will be his next opponent? Where does this leave each individual? And do we get a definitive Game 7, uninterrupted, without any controversy, between 2 of SmackDown's brightest stars? I know I would be much looking forward to it. I hope they give that to us, but I'm not the booker, That leads us to our main event, which really had a big fight feel. Gunther the World Heavyweight Champion for Monday Night Raw, versus the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, the WWE Champion representing Friday Night SmackDown. In, again, a matchup that really presented itself as a big fight feel. This was a match that guys like Triple H and Cody Rhodes had compared to like the matches of yesteryear, whether it was a Bruno Sammartino fighting the greats, like a Harley Race, whether it was like a Ric Flair versus Cody Rhodes, Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan, the Austin versus Goldberg. Like, there was just so many comparisons on these great champions doing battle against other great champions, and I thought it was a great showcasing for both of the WWE's top stars, their top babyface in Cody Rhodes, and I think their top heel in Gunther, which is very difficult to call him a heel because his work rate excels over so many other individuals. It's hard to boo him, right? Cody Rhodes is a guy that's old school, so you knew he was going to be bringing it. He wanted Gunther to bring it. Many times he was getting chopped by Gunther. At one point where he urged Gunther, he says, give it to me, chop me, right? Left his chest all red and bruised, and it's exactly what we expected from these two. Great matchup here. Again, if you had watched the prediction video, I had predicted Gunther to win. I honestly thought that Kevin Owens or Randy Orton, something like that, would present itself in terms of interference and cost Cody the title. I didn't think he needed this win. I thought Cody Rhodes, again, like a Seth Rollins, suffering a loss, he's protected in it. He can come back from it. But Gunther, I thought they were going to give it to him. Had they already strapped the rocket to him with the King of the Ring win, the world title win, the great Intercontinental title reign, and then to cap it off with this, I thought for sure, they're going to give it to him. And they didn't. It was a great finish, I thought, where Cody Rhodes is going for the Cody Cutter, a super Cody Cutter. Gunther counters it with the sleeper hold, the same sleeper that we saw Cody succumb to on SmackDown last night. So that was a real treat for me. I thought, like, okay, cool. It's referencing what had happened during the closing moments of SmackDown, and it presented Cody as an intelligent babyface. A lot of times, especially in WWE, they kind of present their baby faces as like naive. One of the moments I hate for like a baby face is there's like a distraction, like on the ramp or some kind of interference, and they're left looking around, like, oh, where are they coming? Where it's like 9 times out of 10, they're right behind you. They kind of present them in these like foolish and silly moments, but Cody, learning from his mistakes, got in the sleeper hold and was able to carry the momentum with him, where he puts Gunther in a pinning predicament and ekes out a victory. He defeats Gunther, and for me, watching it live, I was actually had like a delayed reaction because I thought for sure Gunther was going to win this matchup. And once the referee's hand hits the mat for 3, I'm like, whoa, they actually gave Cody the victory. Cool moment for Cody, especially being that he's the face of the company. But yeah, it was very rare that I'm caught off guard with a victory. And it's like, wow, okay, cool. I have no problem being wrong when it comes to those prediction videos. Some people like to voice their opinions and say like, oh, you got this wrong, or oh, you got this many right. Yeah, hold me accountable, because I like to be right. Who wouldn't like to be right? But when it comes to like matches like this, it's a pleasant surprise to be like, hey, like, they got me. They tricked me. They were able to surprise me as someone who's watched professional wrestling for, almost 25 years, So overall, a good show, I thought, from top to bottom. WWE, and again, it wasn't a 5-match card. We had 7 matches on the night, which is impressive for a Triple H premium live event. But I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you guys thought of Crown Jewel. What was your favorite matchup? What did you think of the Bloodline saga? Did you think Cody defeating Gunther was the right call? What were your thoughts on the no contest between Kevin and Randy Orton? Go ahead and sound off in the comments. Like the video, comment on the video, and of course, super kick that subscribe button to keep up to date with all the post-show reactions, the J Area Wrestling Podcast, and other videos that I upload here on the channel. I want to thank you guys again for joining me on this Crown Jewel post-show reaction. Of course, my name is Jose Ramos Jr., and I'll be seeing you all next time.